preview of what we're about to learn from the FISA and Durham probes. Joining us now is former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman and Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Brett Tolman, you're former U.S. Attorney, but you also worked on the Senate Judiciary Committee. You were involved in the writing of these laws regarding FISA. If somebody actually, as is the allegation that is now popping up, this Kevin Kleinsman, altered evidence, altered an email, injected his own thoughts into his email and projected it as somebody else's thoughts, what kind of criminality could that potentially lead to in terms of a charge?
Well, when Carter Page says that it's more of the same, I would beg to differ in this way. It's actually worse than more of the same. The FISA court is the highest level of government power. Remember, everything that is presented to a FISA court judge has to be vetted, and it has to be screened, and it goes as high as the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General of the United States. So at issue is when you misrepresent to a FISA court judge, not only are you lying to a federal officer, which is a criminal violation, but you also are obstructing justice in a very significant way with the most important tools we give law enforcement.
So without having all the details of the case, what are the potential charges, Brett?
So you have obstruction of justice. You have what's called a 1001 charge, which is lying to a federal officer. But think about this, Jason. Very few people know that conspiracy is itself a criminal violation. If he's part of a concerted effort, a resistance, a group of people that are working together with a common goal to deceive a FISA court judge, to issue a warrant when it shouldn't have been issued, to attack and go after a sitting president without the sufficient basis for that warrant. I mean, think how preposterous it is that instead of working on criminal justice reform or Fair Chance Act that's ready to be passed, Congress has to be reviewing and looking at the FBI and whether or not they are exercising the powers that Congress has given them.
And so, Charlie, when you hear the Attorney General of the United States talking about the resistance movement in Washington, D.C., he's in a perch that he has a view that most others don't see. How real is that in Washington?
Oh, I think it's very real. And I think that all of the evidence that has come out along these lines of the FISA abuse lines up right behind that and proves the point. And God bless the Attorney General for putting such a fine point on it. But I also think that this New York Times report and the Washington Post report about the falsification of the FISA, that's a very serious, hugely, enormously serious issue. And their attempt to downplay it is utterly meaningless to me. Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the previous administration spying on political opponents at the height of a presidential election during an election. That is something that does not happen in a free republic. And the idea that even that is seen through some partisan lens, that Democrats or liberals aren't outraged by that, is truly shocking. Can you imagine if the Bush administration had spied on the Barack Obama's campaign during the 2008 campaign? Everyone would be and should be outraged. Or could you imagine if the Clinton administration had spied on the Bush campaign during the 2000s? It didn't happen. But if it did, I think that there would be bipartisan outrage. And the idea that Democrats are just turning a blind eye to the notion that we're going to weaponize the federal government, weaponize the most powerful espionage agencies in our government to go after political opponents and not just spy on them, but in some cases punish them, it's shocking.
No, and look, for the New York Times and the Washington Post to essentially come out with the same article at the same hour, within less than 8 hours after Donald Trump starts to talk about this, is a little suspect to say the least. But we're going to hear a lot more about it when the report's released later in December. Brett and Charlie, thank you so much. Now let's turn to a brand new report. Our friends at